Hey everyone, welcome back. So I got a cool video for you guys today. What it is this. It's just a little something that I thought I'd share with you guys, right? And it has to do with the concept, the idea of not making excuses, right? Just quit making excuses and just go make it happen. So let's start off. Let's get going. So first off, we all have challenges, right? That's a common human experience. Everyone's got challenges and they're all relative. And what I mean by that, let's get into the weeds a little bit. So there are some people, right, that grew up in a household where they were poor, dirt poor. Maybe one or two of their parents were addicted to drugs or they were alcoholics. Pretty bad situation, right? And then along that spectrum, right, we might have somebody else who maybe grew up in a household where money was not an issue, right? They had money, a nice middle class family, and maybe just dad was a little distant, really didn't show much love, or mom was too preoccupied with, I don't know, with her career and, didn't show the affection that the child wanted, right? And, if we look at this from a strictly objective standpoint, like most people might say, well, the person that grew up in that broken household, right? The one with the, mom that was a drug addict, dad that was an alcoholic, getting beat up by, maybe, one of the parents was physically abusive, objectively, you could easily say, right? That person has it significantly worse, right? They got a legitimate excuse for how their life turned out, in the future. And I would say to you guys that most people might say that, right? But I actually want to push back against that. I want to push back against that, and I want to tell you that I believe it's all relative. Yes, I understand the person that went through that horrible childhood, absolutely, much more difficult, in some ways, but it's all relative, right? The pain that person feels is just as real to them as this person, right? The disappointment, the suffering, the loneliness, the fill in the blank, right? Whatever terrible emotion they felt as they were going through that experience, it's all relative, right? So they're both feeling it. I think the easiest way that I can give you an example is this. When I was incarcerated and I'd already spent a few years, right? I met people that were just coming in, people that were maybe 3 months, 2 months, right into their incarceration, and they would look at me, right? They were initially they confide in me in how just how bad they felt, and I was a good listener, so I'd listen to them talk about how devastating this was, the entire thing, their story, right? What they went through, how they got here, innocent or guilty, whatever, right? Just the entire journey. And then when they would turn around and ask me eventually, right? Go, well, how long have you been, incarcerated? And I tell them it was very common, very quite often they go, wow, like I couldn't even imagine doing that many years, right? Incarcerated, locked up like an animal, like caged up like an animal here in this place. My answer was always the same, right? Because by that point I'd gotten to that point of understanding that it's all relative, right? The person that, even though I still had hard times, I still did not get used to it. I didn't ever get used to it, right? Even after almost 12 years, I didn't get used to it. I hated that place. Every single day of it. It was good moments, but I hated every single day of it. But I could still feel compassion, and I totally understood what somebody was going through that was just a week or a month into it or a year into it, right? Because it's all relative. It's all relative. The girl like that grew up in that middle class family, and maybe the worst thing that happened to her was the dad was a little too strict and distant and didn't show her love, and she always kind of longed for that love of, from her father, right? Warmth from her father, and she never got that, right? You understand that, like, that pain, right? And you can get real deep into this, and then there's all sorts of exceptions to the exceptions, and just like the law, right? But she's feeling anguish and pain and suffering on a scale from 1 to 10, right? For her, that she's feeling that same pain on that same magnitude, right? Or plus or minus, to say to that child that grew up, that other girl that grew up, and she was abused by her father, right? Physically or sexually abused. Yeah, that's devastating, and it's horrible. And I don't want to minimize that, right? Don't get me wrong. I don't want to minimize it, but what I'm trying to convey to you is that it's all relative. In fact, just to illustrate my point further, if she's strong mentally, right? The example I just used, right? The worst example, right? Out of the two, from a strictly objective standpoint, I would say that, if she's strong mentally and if she focuses on the right things, reads the right books, and, makes a couple of mental adjustments, potentially could suffer, right? Could suffer less than this other person. Because suffering is internal. You understand that, right? It's totally subjective. We talk about objectivity, but everything is subjective, right? We all experience pain and suffering subjectively, right? If I'm going through something and for me it's an 8, you know what I mean? Who are you to tell me that it's not an 8, that it's a 7 or a 7.5? How do you know? Right? You have no idea what's going on in my mind, right? What's going on in my life, in my world. So that's what I'm referring to. But why do I go into all this, right? So you're wondering, well, why, what's this got to do with quit making excuses? And it's because of this. Because everybody has gone through some sort of trauma. Everybody's gone through some sort of pain, suffering, challenges, obstacles, hurdles, whatever, right? It's all around you. All you have to do is just kind of lift your head up and, not be so self-absorbed and look around you, and everybody's going through something. Everybody. Some people worse than others, right? From an objective standpoint. And everybody has to choose how they deal with it, right? Do you let that cripple you? Do you let that, become your crutch for the rest of your life? Or do you take that and turn it into something? Ultimately the choice is yours. And it's tough, right? Because some people were not raised with the right mindset, right? They weren't raised with the right mindset to where they can take those situations and turn them into something, positive. But if you can do that, it's amazing, right? It's amazing. And anything's possible, right? Somebody could take, for example, being, brought up in poverty and always worried about the next meal and not having nice clothes because, mom and dad couldn't afford to buy you something except for once a year, once every 6 months. And it had to be something out of a thrift shop or a yard sale or something, right? You could grow up in that type of environment and then take that and turn that into like a burning desire for wealth, right? And work ethic, right? Work ethic. Or somebody could grow up, right? Like the example I gave earlier of somebody who grew up maybe being abused as a child, whether it's little boy or little girl, and instead of letting that cripple them, right? And destroy them and making them feel like a victim and distrusting the opposite sex or the same sex, right? For the rest of their lives, right? They can take that and turn that into like love and compassion for others and trying to help in society, right? To try to help that from happening ever again to anybody else, any other child, right? It doesn't have to be this crutch or something that cripples you. It could be something that empowers you. The choice is yours, right? The choice is absolutely yours. You could take somebody that, that has dealt with rejection, tons of it, right? Tons of rejection. And you can turn that into trying to become the best version of yourself, whatever that is, right? The best version of yourself. In fact, you could even take that. I'm in sales, right? In commercial real estate, we're doing development, we're doing sales, we're doing land entitlements and stuff like that. And you could take that. I've seen it in people. You could take that rejection and then turn it into something, into something that slowly becomes and into like a strength of yours, a superpower. And you're great at selling and you're great at bouncing back from rejection. And you could become the next, Tom Hopkins or the next, Alex Hormozy or whatever, right? But it's what you turn it into, right? It's what do you do with it? Another, example, right? These are all conceptual examples. You could take anger, right? For example, you could take anger and instead of letting anger like lead to self-destruction or lead to, being antisocial or all these other things, right? You can turn that into incredible self-discipline. And self-discipline will do wonders for you because it doesn't matter what it is that you want to pursue in life. If you take self-discipline, right, to the next level, there's nothing you can't accomplish. There's nothing you can't accomplish. To take it back to me, to give you guys an example. So when I was, right, incarcerated, wrongfully convicted, and sitting there thinking that I would never, ever, ever see the light of day again, I took, some of those moments of anger, right? And I took that and turned it into discipline. And the discipline was to daily, right? Every day, 7 days a week, grind, work on reading case law, writing, understanding the law, understanding the rules of evidence, rules of criminal procedure, rules of appellate procedure, understanding federal law, right? And as it applied to the state laws and these different doctrines and principles of law and all this good stuff, right? And I say good stuff, but that's not the word I meant, because it's the more you learn, the more you realize how crooked it is, right? It's like the whole thing is just, it's a joke. I'm sure the intentions were good initially, but it's been warped into something that's disgusting. And it affects everyone. So you can watch some of my other videos and you'll see what I'm talking about. This is not about specific groups being targeted. Yeah, some groups might have it a little bit worse than others, but it doesn't matter. Do you understand? Everybody's getting screwed, right? Everybody. Anyways, getting back to my point, I turned that into discipline, and there was some aspects of the law, some principles and some doctrines of the law, a number of them, that I learned incredibly well. And I can say this with confidence, I learned them better than the attorneys, because I argued some of these points with attorneys that I had at one point, and they didn't understand what I was trying to say, right? They just quite didn't get it, because it goes pretty deep, right? Because there's exceptions to the exceptions and exceptions to those exceptions, and it goes down the line. And then there's these other principles that overlap, right? That have an influence on how you interpret the law. And then you have to also look at I can keep going right on about this, but I learned, right? I used that discipline to learn certain principles of the law, and got to the point where I understood them better than I think most attorneys, right? Because they were very nuanced principles and concepts, and I understood them exceptionally well. So anyways, that's just an example of how I turned anger and frustration into discipline, and discipline into something that was productive, that eventually was able to land me me overturning my conviction, right? So that's an example. Now let's get into, I want to give you guys two specific examples, right? And these relate to things that I'm going through, and I'm sure that a lot of people out there are going through as well, because it's just part of being an entrepreneur, right? So sometimes you have people that are not pulling their weight, right? Whether it's a partner or somebody that works for you or what have you, right? People are not pulling their weight. So instead of sitting there, right? And I've been in a situation where it's easy to just sit there and get frustrated, and it goes nowhere, right? It's pointless, it's useless. Instead, right, what I've decided to do in my business is you attempt to have a serious conversation with this person, right? With this individual. Sometimes that's not even possible, right? Because, well, we won't get into the details, right? But essentially what it comes down to is some people either, are not receptive to your ideas, or sometimes it doesn't work because they just simply won't even, come in to actually have a conversation with you, right? They start ghosting you, right? Which in business, and I have a short video on that, is I think it's cowardice, right? It's cowardice. You're in business. You know what I mean? If you're in business, you understand what that means to be an entrepreneur? I mean, cowards should not become entrepreneurs, right? If you're an entrepreneur, you got some courage. You got some, you're out there on the front lines, right? You are like William Wallace, you know what I mean? On that front line with your soldiers, and you're going out there and you're taking on insurmountable odds, right? Insurmountable odds. But if you don't have that in you, you should not be an entrepreneur. But there's people that at least today, now that more so than before, when I first started, like now it seems like it's a sexy thing to do. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, but you don't have the character, you don't have the qualities for it. So you have people that just simply won't meet with you and talk to you, or won't respond to your requests. And those people, you just got to cut them off, right? So that's where I was going ultimately. It was just you have a conversation with them. You got to go ahead and get it done. Quit making excuses, right? People are people, right? You get it done yourself. And after you get it done yourself, then you go and you get rid of those people, or you get rid of them and then you get it done, right? Whichever sequence you want to do there. But then you find new people, because there are quality people out there to work with, right? Quality people to do business with. Just got to look for them. You got to attract them, right? And so you got to get better so you can attract those people into your life. So that's the whole law of attraction thing, right? So another example, right? So, and that's one. Another example is like, maybe you need money. You're low on funds, you have no money, and you need a solution, right? Things are bad. So first off, right, and this is a subject that I won't ever get tired of talking about, because I don't know. I just think there's just this misconception out there, right? With all the technology and the AI and all the software and all the cool gadgets that are out there, people got this misconception that they're so smart, right? That they're so brilliant, and no one else is as brilliant as them, and they can afford to work part-time, and then if they work part-time or less than part-time, and then they're not rich, or they haven't made six figures in a few months, then they're quick. They're trying to blame, like, well, it's not my fault, right? Because I did the right thing. I jumped on MailChimp. I jumped on Call Tools. I used whatever software, and I went on ChatGPT and spent 10 hours last week. And why am I not rich? And so anyways, my point is this: if you're having issues with money, quit doing a 9-to-5, right? And I think it's Jim Rohn that says this. I could be wrong. Maybe it's Hormozy, but instead of working a 9-to-5, trade that for a 5 to 9. 5 to 9. You know what that means? 5 in the morning to 9 p.m. Try that for a change. See how that goes. I would challenge you to try that out, still working smart, but also working hard, right? And do that for a few months and see if your situation doesn't change. It just will. It has to. There's no question about it. Unless, of course, there's always exceptions, right? But those are rare, right? But that's one thing, right? Change your 5 to 9 to your 9 to 5 for a 5 to 9. Quit taking every single holiday, right? Holidays come by and you want to just, every single holiday that comes by, right? There's 12 of them, 13 of them. I don't know what it is. We're up to now. You want to take every single one of them off. You want to go out there and have a good time. You want to see every weekend as an escape from your job, from reality, from your business, right? It's like you got to invest a little bit, right? You got to invest a little bit into your business, and you got to, like, if you're trying to be above average, then you can't have all your decisions be average. You make average decisions, it leads you to average results with a few exceptions, right? Rare exceptions. Yeah, quit taking every single holiday to go and have a good time. Quit taking every single weekend to just forget about, life and work and just going out and having a good time and drinking and doing whatever it is you do to just escape from your business, right? You can't do that every single time. You know what I mean? If you're serious about getting out of, the situation you're in financially, quit leaving on Fridays early, right? Like, it's funny. Yeah, I understand. Look, it's the same thing for me. I enjoy holidays, right? I'd love to be, and I don't always take them off, but once in a while I will, right? And I like weekends, and I don't always go out there and have a great time, but I do sometimes, right? And we're in a grind phase right now. We're growing. I got 2 businesses that I'm growing, and that's why I'm, investing a little more time and energy. But my point is that, like, Fridays are also, days that, I'd like to be able to leave early. But you can't do that every Friday. You might be able to treat yourself maybe once a month, leave a little bit early, but really every single Friday you're gonna leave at 3 or 5 or whatever it is. It's you got to be realistic at some point, right? There's some degree of realism that's missing from a lot of people's minds, right? But getting back to my point is, as far as money issues, right? Another thing is just quit spending money on things you want but don't need. That's obvious, right? You all know that. And overall, right? Overall, if I can give you some advice on that, right? If we're talking about money, is quit talking about it and actually be about it. I mean, people love talking about it. They love listening to all these people that are successful. They love going to all these conferences, but yeah, quit talking about it. Quit listening to other people talk about it, you know what I mean? And going and, like, do it, like, be about it. Like, you know what I mean? Grind, work, be smart, you know what I mean? Like, be smart when you work, but like actually work. So anyways, I hope that was helpful. But just in summary, I guess, the whole point of this video is to talk to you guys about just how it's too easy, right? To come up with excuses for why, things aren't going your way, right? It's too easy. And everybody's got something that's happening, whether it's some sort of trauma or some sort of bad experience, whether it's in business or personal life or whatever it is, but you don't have to let that be a crutch, right? Everything's got a solution. Every single thing's got a solution. And it's up to you though, right? To have the right mindset to actually look for the solution and to push past, right? Past the walls that life throws at you, right? That when you're in business, I mean, there's challenges every single day. And you just got to break through that, you know what I mean? You just got to push past it. But it's up to you. You got to have the right mindset. You just got to, and you got to work on it. Sometimes you don't have the right mindset, right? And you just got to work on it. But ultimately, you know what I mean? Your mantra's got to be no excuses, right? If it's to be, it's up to me, right? Get it done. Quit talking about it. Get it done. No excuses. It doesn't matter how you grew up, what happened to you, who did what to you. Just get it done. Let's go. Anyways, I hope that was helpful. Yeah, look forward to seeing you guys in my next video. Got a good one planned for you guys next time. So